My name is Buck Woody. And when you search on the internet, just spell that very carefully because you can go to some interesting places. Just so you know. We're going to talk today about becoming a data professional. I promise not to PowerPoint you to death. There are some things I'll need to read from the screen today. We'll go over those. I do want you to know that everything I reference today is at this tiny URL. Come on in, Patrick. You're not late at all. You're not interrupting a bit or stealing any of my thunder. No, find a seat. I'm sure there's a... We'll wait. We'll wait for you. Very good. It's all about you, babe. This is my friend Patrick LeBlanc. He's a fellow Cajun. Well, you're not Cajun, but close enough. Close enough. All right. There's a tinyurl.com, and they use one of those inferior operating systems, not from Microsoft, so case matters. It's A, 8, S as in Sam, 6, Y as in yo-yo, 7, V, or you can see this on your way out. That has all of the links that I'm going to talk about today. I've just put them on a blog entry for you. I do still want you to take notes. I don't put everything up on the screen. I want this to be very interactive. Does everybody know what active listening is? Do you know what that means? This guy in the back going, I'm sorry, what? Active listening means that we participate back and forth in the message. I don't know everything. We do collectively know everything. By the way, have you ever seen that? Hi, come on in. Again, no pressure. Just take a seat anywhere you like. I'll wait. If you get a cell phone, now would be a good time to cut it off because I'll answer it for you. And I've literally done that. Another good friend, all in good fun. But the general idea here is I saw an interesting statistic. I don't know if you saw this program, but it dealt with the world of numbers. And this guy went out as a statistician, and he had a jar, like those jars we have of the candy. You guys seen the jars of candy? Any of you partaken in the jars of candy? I have. And he said, how many are in here? And an individual person would say 40, right? How wrong could that be? Another guy would say like 80,000, right? And so there were these wide disparities. But he did an interesting thing. He went to an office building and asked every person who would talk to him how many pieces of candy were in the jar. And you know what? When he averaged it out, do you know what? They were 12 off. Wow. The wisdom of it works. It works. So we all know everything. So make sure you speak out. If you have an opinion about something I put up here, that's fine. I've been doing this a really long time. I've been in data pretty much my entire career. And in fact, my statement, if you go to my LinkedIn page or other pages that I have, you'll actually see that my belief is, stick with me, and this is the first place you can disagree if you like. Computer people in the room, hopefully pretty much everybody. Okay, good. You can disagree with this if you like. All computing, always and never are two words you should always remember never to use. All computing is merely rearranging data. I disagree with that. I don't care about Outlook. I care about the email, right? I don't care about WordPerfect. I care about the document. WordPerfect. That shows you how old I am. I care about the data inside. That's why we're here. I love data. I mentioned this earlier in a presentation that I gave yesterday where I said people always say people are our most important asset. People are not assets. People are people, right? But when Bill Gates left Microsoft, Microsoft continued. When Steve Jobs left Apple, Apple continued. But if we were to lose our data set, and we didn't know who owed us money, and we didn't know who we owed money, you'd cease as a company. The most important thing your organization has is data, and you're in charge of it. Perhaps you're at the level of a data steward, kind of like a bank. We go to the bank and we say, how much money do I have? Well, you've got 50 bucks. I'm married, so we all know that's fiction, right? My wife does not let me control that much cash. That would be odd. But the point is that she, or rather the bank, knows how much I have. They can put it in lira. They can move it from one account to another. They can let me put more money in. Ha-ha. They can let me take money out. And that works. That's what the bank does. But if I ask the bank, is that good? Is that a good thing that I have 50 bucks? The bank would say, I don't know. I mean, you're married, so I suppose that's yes. But they would say, I don't have any idea about the meaning of the data. I just have the data, and that's what a lot of us are. We're data stewards. We can move data in and out of systems. We can move data from one place to another. We can allow people to input data or select data back out. but we don't often take the ability to say that's good or that data has this meaning. The journey, in my mind, of a data professional is taking data, and by the way, there's no such thing as big data. Data is plural, so you can't have big many, right? So it's just data. We take data, turn it into information, and then turn that into meaning. The meaning is an application. We need to help the business people, and we'll call them that even though it may not be a business. We'll call that the business people derive meaning from the data we store. So that's kind of where we are today. All right, let's move forward. Let's talk a little bit about the data profession areas. And here is the same thing that happens to you when your wife comes in and says, well, do you like it? And you don't know if it's the dress or the shoes or the hair. You do know one thing, here be danger. You're going to get it wrong, right? You know that. So I'm about to get it wrong. I'm going to compliment your hair when you just bought new shoes, okay? Just so you know. All right. I'll come back and I will blunt this a little bit in just a moment. Let's talk about the first data area, and some of these fonts might be small because of the projectors, but I'll read them out for you. A database administrator, sometimes called a DBA. They install, configure, manage, and maintain data systems, also security, we'll talk about that in a minute, and sometimes hardware. This is what a DBA, a general job description of a DBA. Let me say right at the outset, you're not one of these. You're probably a mixture of all of them. We'll talk about that in a minute, okay? Do you agree with this definition? Have any more you'd throw in with a DBA? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Data optimization.
So optimization and performance tuning is one you'll put in this space. Okay, good.
Backup and recovery.
Backup and recovery, I like that. I kind of call that the manages. Maybe that goes with optimization, but I think HA, high availability and disaster recovery, or HADR. And by the way, I believe that's a spectrum. The more highly available I am, the more I don't need disaster recovery because it's built right in. In fact, in some cases, and especially in large data sets, you can't back it up, so you keep it twice, and it's active. So your backup is actually a live system somewhere else. It's actually becoming a new thing. We're worried less about tape backups than we are system availability. Very good, I like those. Can you explore that for me a little bit? When you say performance tuning, what are some of the things that a DBA would work on for performance tuning?
Everything from schema normalization,
Schema normalization.
slow queries, how you're accessing the data.
So dissecting a query coming in, okay?
Yes, storage engine, your indexes.
Indexes, that's the one I was kind of going for. The DBA often has control of those indexes. They're the watering can in a bonsai garden. You can kill your system with them, or you can make them thrive by doing the right ones and the wrong ones. I've heard arguments that DBAs don't develop software. They don't have anything to do with the design of the database. That's the developer's realm. Interesting. And if you want to start a holy war, that's one way to do it. All right, database administrator. Where do these people come from? How many of you would classify yourselves, either now or you have been in the past, a DBA, a database administrator? And I'll raise my hand. I was on a mainframe at DBA. Where did you come from? Did you go to college to be a database administrator and you got some OJT on being a database administrator?
Washington University.
Right. Was that the degree you went for, though, DBA? Okay, I don't want to talk to you. How about you? How about you? Where'd you come from on it?
Management information systems.
So you were a sysadmin, right? People who were sysadmins and became DBAs, raise your hand. Right? You're in charge of the box, ergo, you must be in charge of the database, right? The computer's a black box and it steals our soul, and so that you know all about the magic box, and so that's you, right? Have you ever been asked to fix a copier because you know how to work a computer? Okay, same concept. You had your hand up as well. You became a DBA because you were a geographer. You're going to have to explain that, I'm afraid. I wasn't expecting that particular one. Yeah.
Geography is the science of relationships.
Ah, interesting.
It's all about relationships.
Interesting. Very nice. I like that. So because of that, though, you were in charge of the database system primarily because you were using it in your work, correct?
I've held DBA jobs.
Yeah.
I've held jobs where I was the DBA for data sets.
Right.
So both.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I've seen. Developers that became DBAs. Started out in the development side, and you have to use a database when you're writing code, and so you know about the database, ergo, tag you're it. I call these tag you're it database administrators. or accidental DBAs. You'll hear that term as well. These are the folks that I feel the most affinity towards, and the reason why is because there wasn't the formal education around these things, and so without a computer science background, perhaps, or without data science backgrounds, they're asked to manage a system, and they sort of back into knowledge. You start out keeping the system alive and making sure there's disaster recovery and it's optimized as best you can, and then when you go through, you find out, what's a stored procedure again? I know DBAs that have never written any SQL code ever, because that's not what they do. How many of you actually work and touch the hardware on the database system? A lot of us don't. And back in the day, that was your job. You built the server and the disk packs and all the other things that you had to do to make this happen. So I also want to make sure I'm very clear in this entire session that we're not talking about levels, like you don't become a DBA and then you graduate to something else. That's not the point. They're an equality, at least in my mind, right? Maybe at the company they get paid more or less depending on the job, but that's not a distinction I make. Questions on a DBA? We're just defining terms at this point, okay? The next one I see is a data developer, and this one actually has a shorter definition that has probably more variables around it, not to put too fine a point on it, but a data developer develops and tunes code against data. And I put data developer specifically rather than just a developer. Does anybody know a developer that does not use data? Right? So there's no way not to do that, right? You're going to be working with data no matter what. But when I say this, what I mean is in specific, perhaps, and I've known this before, people that do nothing but write SQL code all day. They write the stored procedures, they develop the schemas, and so on. These people are actually interested in that. There's an interesting, we're going to come into what you need to do when you're in each of these professions, but there's an interesting dichotomy between the mindsets of someone like this and someone like this. This person I found often thinks in terms, when I walk in a room, I look for the exit, right? And because I'm always looking for that disaster recovery scenario. That's me, right? I will never have, if you go to my house, there will always be toilet paper, right? I think in terms of redundancy. And it doesn't get more important than that, people. You do not want to visit someone's home and have to yell out, do you have any toilet paper? Sorry. There it is. All right, so I think in those terms, a developer often thinks in terms of, how can we push this? How can we change it? I just got it all baked and set and it's working. Let's mess with it, right? And developers do that. That's their stock and trade. So that's this kind of person. Those are generalities. Again, you'll see attributes of both in each. Business intelligence developer. And what I've got here is provides tools and data sets to visualize and explore data. Also, KPIs, key performance indicators, right? So this is a person who actually walks even further away from like the hardware, maybe the design of a specific database, and goes more along the lines of what can we do with this data that we've now got? How do we show it to people? And Patrick, you were just showing some folks some of the things that are in all of our favorite tool, Excel, and its visualization, right? Lots of visualizations. And how do I show this data? For instance, if I were to take a DBA and say, what is the best visualization for an ever-increasing data set that could show a regression trend? The DBA might look at me and say, I know where the backups are, right? I can restore it for you if you need that. And the business intelligence developer may say, a back what? Right? So these are often different people as well. So a business intelligence person is often now thinking along the lines of what the organization does for a living. This is going to become key. I believe we all need to have some attributes that the business intelligence developer has, no matter what our role. Next is something called a data architect. Now we're getting into some squishy terms that you may not have at your particular company. This person integrates data from multiple platforms or views data as a product of the organization. And what that means is you're thinking at this level about the strategic value of your data, not tactical. Is everybody with me on that? Any questions there? Okay, the strategic value of your data. As opposed to making sure the trains stay on the tracks, this person is saying, are we on the right train? Is this train going the right way? Are we going to the right place? What else could we do? They also don't care about whether you're using Microsoft or Oracle or Google or Amazon. It doesn't matter. It's just data. I use whatever tool's handy. Is everybody with me there? Then there's this new thing called the data scientists. So let me give you the definition I've come up with because it's new, so I get to come up with my own definitions. This person uses maths and sciences to make predictions and provide historical analysis. So that's the generalization of a data scientist. Now let me explain a little bit more about that term. I've written an article called, Is There Any Such Thing as Data Science? When you start looking at the scientific method and so on, depending on how you're looking at this role, there's no such thing as a data scientist, but I think we get the gist of what we're talking about here. And it's this. I would say that the thing that separates this person the most from maybe the other roles is a high degree of mathematical talent. And that specifically involves linear algebra and statistics, and I'll come back to that in a moment. That's what this person needs to know. You want to be a better data professional, go take a stats class. And it's okay if you say, you know what, I don't want to admit it in this room, but I'm not good with stats. It's okay. It's okay. Believe it or not, the Khan Academy has an absolutely excellent statistics course. I went through it with my daughter. They've got an excellent course on beginning statistics. If it's been a while, it's worth a look. Okay? But this is interesting. They do two things, really. Their job descriptions break down into two things. One is historical analysis. And why are we looking at historical analysis? Why would I look at something in the past? To predict the future, right? But I've separated them out. Make predictions and provide historical analysis. Why else might you want historical? Isn't that the same thing? Don't I always look at the past to predict the future, or maybe not? Provide context is a big one. Yes, sir.
Figure out who to blame.
And blame storming. Blame storming, the second phase of a project. Yeah, I like that one. Somebody else had a comment over here.
Patterns.
Get patterns. I like that because it's not making a predictions. If we grab a pattern out, now we can stamp it and make it into a best practice. We can actually see what's worked in the past. Interesting stuff. Where does this all come down into our world? Well, I would also say uses maths and sciences. Has anyone ever heard of a futurist? Do you know what a futurist is? Somebody who makes predictions about the future. I've always viewed those people as kind of spooky, you know, with the aura and the rocks that you put on your back and stuff. I don't believe in all that stuff, right? But there are some out there who use statistical methods, and they do a pretty darn good job. There's one called faithpopcorn.com, faithpopcorn.com. It's on the blog list, but if you ever go there, look at their trend bank and take a look at a few of the very interesting analyses that this young lady has done using statistics about our demographics and where we're going. Things like cocooning, meaning people are buying more things to stay home, buying big screen TVs and Netflix and so on, so they don't have to go anywhere. Things like value-based investing. Uh-oh, what did we just say? Value-based investing. Knowing these trends means that you, as the data professional, can start tying that kind of data into the data of your giving that you can marry up and say, you know what, we had this demographic of people that used to give us millions of dollars. That's not the demographic that's going to give us $1 million next year. Don't chase the last election. I'll say no more about that. Don't chase the last election. Okay? How many of you listen to NPR on a regular basis? That's kind of a stupid thing to ask in a college area. So on my way home yesterday, I was listening to NPR. Do you know what the story was about? Their main headline, you know, the main headline story? The main headline story was that Stanford became, did you hear about this? Became the first university that got over $1 billion of donations in one campaign. Did you see that? Last year was the first time it's ever happened. They also talked about it that it's on the uptick. And so they started looking into why that was true. Where's Stanford? Where is it? Say again? Silicon Valley? Who works in Silicon Valley? People who make a lot of money. No, not you guys. You do? I need to talk to you later because I may be a little short for dinner. No, they make a lot of money. So there's a corollary there, isn't there? Right? Or is there? Great question. We know to question that. The data scientist knows that there's no such thing as a corollary. You've heard of the Chinese guy that was out farming and his neighbor came by and he said, I heard your son got inducted into the army. That's terrible. And he said, well, no, it's good because now he'll get a steady salary to send back to us. And he go, well, that's good. And he says, well, no, not really. It's not great because now I won't have him to help me work the farm. And he goes, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And he said, well, it's not so bad. He's got a younger brother. And so this goes on for about an hour. And the general proverb goes, there's no such thing as bad or good. There's no corollaries. We have to just look at those edge graphs. The geographic type problems, geospatial type problems are excellent corollaries. It's actually how Google figured out, how should we search the internet? We could grab every single page and we could index it. That would take a really long time, and it's an ever-changing problem. So they said, wait a minute, let's back up a minute, and let's see what everybody else says about her page. And if a lot of people like her page, it must be important. So we'll actually index a much smaller set of people saying nice things about your page rather than copying about it. And that's a geographical problem. It's a traveling salesman problem. Very, very common system. Questions on the data scientist? We'll come back to these. Okay, everybody agree with these definitions? Anybody have any more? Do you have any other data professionals you've seen? Okay. Now here's where it kind of comes down to, I'm going to go ahead and animate this. Here's where it comes down to where the rubber meets the road. I've got a small organization on this side and a larger organization on this side, and the two trends you'll see are more individualization in tasks, fewer people handling multiple roles. How many of you are in what you would consider a small IT shop? Smaller IT shop. Do you just do one thing every day? Okay. Those of us in larger IT shops, raise your hand if you're in a bigger IT shop. Okay, great. Do you find that you're asked to know a whole lot more about the things that you're covering than you might if you're a generalist, right? So you'll see this. Why am I telling you this? Because this is about taking you to your next level of professional career. What do you like doing? You like jumping around to different topics? Go work at a small place. You like focusing and becoming the subject matter expert in a particular area? Go work at a large place. Even better, do both. Work for a while in one place, work for a while in another. I teach a lot of career progression classes. And one of the things I tell people all the time is your career is your fault. Your career is your fault. Your boss doesn't promote you, you promote you. You make sure you move to the next level. It's part of why you're sitting in here. Hopefully you've taken some notes even already that say, well, I like this kind of areas, but I don't like those. Or you may say, I like them all. If you like all of the things I just showed you, you might want to look here. And the notes I have are, in a small organization, architecture and breadth knowledge are very important. Use consultants where needed. Get help. Volunteers. Go out and ask. Now, how do I ask? I sit at Microsoft, and I'm able to pick up the phone and call the guy at Microsoft Research that invented the locking engine for SQL Server and say, I'm having a problem with this algorithm. Can you help me? And he goes, hold on, and he mails me the answer. I can call folks that work at the University of Washington who are a lot smarter than I am and say, hey, Sean, hey, Chris, can you tell me the guy that handles this or that? Yeah, this great lady, she knows everything about it. Here, go talk to her. She knows it all, right? And you think, boy, I wish I worked at a big organization and I had that. Look around. Look around. Everybody that's on LinkedIn, raise your hand. Everybody that's actually done anything on LinkedIn in the past month, don't raise your hand because I'll embarrass you. You should be out there. You should be using it. Don't poo-poo that stuff. It's all about connections. I find it fascinating for two perspectives of a technical professional. I work around a lot of geeks. I'm a geek and I work around a lot of geeks, and the two things I see all the time that geeks don't do, we will analyze our particular technology to death. We will come at it from so many perspectives. It's stunning, absolutely stunning, the kind of research we will do on our technology. And when I ask them, they'll come to me for career counseling. They'll say, what should I do? What do you want to do? I don't know. You are kidding me. Imagine for a moment we decided that we're going to take and know everything we can about you to find out what you should be working on. We don't have access to your data. We don't have access to your thoughts, but you do. Have you ever done BI on yourself? Don't laugh. There is a project out there that goes into Power Pivot. I don't remember the name of it, but it goes into Power Pivot in Excel and will look at your Outlook calendar and tell you where you're spending your time. I send that to my boss. I do. I send him the report and it blows him away. And I'm like, I'm a data nerd. What do you think I'm going to mail you? Right? We don't need to meet. Right? Now, being a data nerd does have its disadvantages. My wife the other day says, you never tell me you love me anymore. And I said, I told you once, the state has not changed. It's like selecting the same value all the time and expecting, it's immediately consistent, it's durable, it didn't go well after that. It really didn't. That's why I only have the $50 now. So if you leverage this, leverage yourself, make sure you know what you're about and that data is your passion and that you talk to the other people in conferences like this. These sessions, you can watch them later. Talk to these people. When you sit down, talk to somebody. I know you're uncomfortable. We're in a building full of nerds. We're all uncomfortable. It's all good. All right? Talk to somebody. Make sure you use that edge network you have and get the 6 degrees of separation from the person that you need to talk to, right? Use those connections. I do it all the time, and I will link in with you. I'm promiscuous on LinkedIn. If you send me an invite, I'll accept. All right. Now in a larger organization, you're going to need deep domain knowledge. That means whatever you're responsible for, they expect you to be the expert. You need to do that. That's part of your job. It's part of your day. If you don't have time, how many of you think, I just don't have time to read enough technical literature? Raise your hand, because I'm raising mine. I don't have enough time to read my technical literature. It's super, super easy. It's a piece of paper and a pencil, and every time you turn on the TV, and it's on for more than 5 minutes, write down the time. When you stop watching TV, write down the time. At the end of a week, take a look at that business intelligence. And there's your time to read. Now, I realize we need downtime. I get it. We can't be on all the time. But you would be shocked at your television diet. You'd be shocked. The easiest way for me to go on a diet is for me to tell everybody I'm going on a diet. And when you're eating the donut, they're like, I thought you were on a diet, right? So they'll tell you, they'll keep you honest. Tell your wife or husband or friend or whoever, if I turn the TV on, say, what books have you read today? It's amazing. I know it's now I've started meddling. I'm sorry. Let's get back to the tech, shall we? But you need deep domain knowledge. But here's the other thing I say. The biggest danger I've seen in large organizations is not enough collaboration. You get sequestered into smaller and smaller areas, and the only people you deal with are the people in your area. Okay? At Boeing, they say sometimes an airplane is not so much a single unit as a bunch of parts flying in close formation. That scares me a little bit about airplanes. But what they mean is that you can become isolated and you're no longer working in a big company, you're working in a really tiny one that involves your cubicle area. Don't do that. Get out. Get out, go find people, and do it from a data perspective. You with me? Any questions here on this? Okay, let's get down to some more technical meat. Let me give you a few pieces of industry predictions that I've seen coming. These are garnered from my perspective, so take them with whatever grain of salt you wish, but I do deal with the largest companies in the United States and sometimes the world, so I do get these and I do mine the data a lot. First trend that I see, structured data is not going away. The relational database has been dying since 1979. It just seems to keep right on chugging through, and they sell the heck out of that stuff. All right, it's not going away. RDBMS, Relational Database Management Systems, will not be going away. By the way, do you know there's still mainframes around? Really? I mean, seriously? The PC killed the mainframe. No, it didn't. There are still places where the mainframe makes total sense. PC makes total sense. Okay? It's an evolution. It's all the same stuff. Relational database management systems are not going away. Structured data is incredibly powerful. Every time I see one of my NoSQL brethren spending an enormous amount of time trying to get consistency and durability and isolation, I said, we had exactly that same problem 30 years ago. We fixed it. It's over here. No, I'll get it. I'll get it. And when I saw somebody put an SQL language over Hadoop, I thought, well, we've arrived. All right. Speaking of which, I was flight to Norway not long ago, and there was a 18-year-old, and I had my Surface tablet out, the Microsoft tablet, and I'm playing with this thing. And I don't care. I use any technology that's out there. But I'm playing with this thing. He started asking me about it. Where'd you get that? I said, I work at Microsoft. So we were chatting, and he says this to me. He's like you look like he's 16, 17 years old. He says, what did you guys do before the internet? I said, we invented it, you little punk. What have you done today? You thrown some birds at a pig? All right, so this is not going away. So, and what's the takeaway from that? The takeaway on that for you is, should I spend my time on relational databases? Absolutely. It's not wasted knowledge. In fact, it's very mature. It works great. Learn it. Semi-structured and unstructured data. The entire NoSQL, which, okay, fine, it's not only SQL, whatever. The entire NoSQL ecostructure deals with semi-structured and unstructured data. These will continue and they'll collapse. The thing I love about open source software is the fact that there's hundreds of thousands of open projects right now, many of which will not be around next year. Some will. Things like NGINX, Apache, other things will obviously be around. Hadoop is a player. It's not the end-all and be-all. Everybody rushes to one side of the boat. It leans way over. We rush to the other, and it leans back, and we eventually balance. This is going to continue. NoSQL is here to stay. There are places to put data. And there is a methodology, by the way, around. I've got a couple of blog posts. When you go out to this place right here, you'll be on my blog. You can look in some of my things about how to figure out where to use each data type. I'm also writing a series on simpletalk.com called The Data Professional's Laboratory. It's building a computer that you can use to explore NoSQL, SQL, MongoDB, all these kinds of things. I'll do one for Windows and I'll do another one for Linux. So that's out there, and I'm going through that, and we're talking about things like R and so on. All right, we need to move forward. Next prediction, data analytics and predictive analytics. The data scientist will be put into a software box. Okay, right now, everybody and their brother, if you can spell data scientist, you can get a job. You won't keep it for very long when they figure out you have no idea what you're doing. But even a stop clock is right twice a day, so you can make a couple predictions and maybe keep your job for a bit. But the point is, at some point, we're not going to have the bottleneck of a single person that has to interpret data for our businesses, even on a heavily statistic and predictive analysis area. We're just not going to have that. That will get into a box. When will it happen? Who knows? But it is happening. Okay? The knowledge of inference and sampling subsets will be huge. Statistics people, anybody in here statistics? Got a statistics background? So you know what I'm talking about here. There's no way to measure an entire population usually. There's no such thing as perfect information. So knowing sampling subsets and knowing how to get the proper sampling model, if you don't have a statistics background, write that down, go research it. But the point is, that's going to become critical to your job, is knowing when to get valuable data. In fact, most cases that I see for Hadoop that I'm putting in, we have a version of that on Windows Azure and on premises now for Windows. Most of those that I put in, people are crunching gigantic data sets down into smaller ones. We call them petabytes to megabytes is what we call that. They still want it in, God bless us all, they want it in Excel. But we've got to get the right stuff down into Excel. People that know how to do that are going to progress in their career. Okay? Inference. Inference, again, means which variables are dependent and not dependent on each other. You need to have that nailed. I brushed my teeth this morning. It rained in Seattle. My teeth brushing does not cause the rain in Seattle. Okay, just so you know. There's a reason 50 Shades of Grey was written here. It's pretty much a description of the weather. No, I'm kidding. I'm not bitter. I'm from Florida. And, you're not intended to read this railroad map. I do have a link to it out here. This is the database landscape map. The purple area shows sort of the non-relational. The white is the relational area. And the green is like graph or grids or caching areas so that you work with data. That's the current, there's a group called 541 Research. That's the current database landscape that's out there right now in use, in production at scale. This is not every little project that's out there, but these are some of the big ones. Some of these you may never even heard of. InfoBright. Anybody familiar with InfoBright? Yeah, so all of these are something somebody is using in production and in its scale. Okay? You don't need to memorize this. Again, I've got a picture. I just wanted to show you that the data world is rich. You're in the right field. You're in the right field. Questions or comments so far? Okay, good stuff. All right, now let's get into the meat of this stuff. Professional preparation. I'm going to read each one of these. They go from left to right, and basically I'm going to talk about the description, the knowledge patterns, the options, and the training. I think they get the deck, right, when they're done. Okay, so you'll have this deck. I'll just go through it, and then we can spend time here. Number one, you need to know about data sources. What do you need to do? I told you that at the beginning of this session, I would tell you what you need to do to take your career to the next level, and here it is. Number one, you need to understand data sources. What do you mean? Where they are? Yeah, where they are and where they should be. And do you bring them in or do you leave them right there? Are you using the API to query LinkedIn data? I keep coming back to LinkedIn. You should check that out from a data perspective. They're actually going to be the closing keynote. Do you know in some cases they may have better information on your students than you do? Do you know you don't have to bring it in and store it? You could just ask them for it? I always say it this way, you actually don't have to buy the entire grocery store when you just want some milk. You can actually just say, you got milk? I'd like some of that, and they'll bring it to you. You don't actually have to go get the whole store and restore it at your house, right? And what sounds ridiculous in real life is what we do all the time. We duplicate data sets constantly, and I don't know why we do that. Leave the data where it's at and go ask it. All right? They've got incredible APIs. If you're not looking into that, write that down. Among others, Facebook, Twitter, lots of places that you can get data. The government has tons of data. I hear Wikipedia's got a few data sets you make available here and there, correct? How many of you are leveraging Wikipedia data sets? Okay, you guys don't have to raise your hand anymore. I actually, on the data science laboratory machine that I'm talking about, that's the data set I talk about. So I go get that, and that's part of the big data I scrub with really advanced database tools like SED, awk, and grep. I do, and it works. Did you know you can join things in grep? Did you know that you can actually find some things faster with SED than you can by simply opening a database query tool? Use the right tool where it makes sense. All right, so what do you need to know to identify sources of data, ingress and flow? Do I bring it in or do I not bring it in? Business, data, and maths. You need to have a data background. You're very fortunate in having gone to school and learned formally how to work with data. And what I do is I do what's called poor man's college. I will go out and look online and find the syllabi from various data courses, and I'll cull those down into a set of data that you know, they're all saying the same thing, and I make sure I know each one of those data points. If I don't, I either self-learn, get a book, attend a class, go to a video, whatever I need to do so I know that area. I figure if 10 schools say you should know a lot about selecting data, I should probably learn what that means. Make sense? Okay, good stuff. And most of you can go to your own classes and stuff for free at your colleges. Do that. Take a little time and invest it in yourself. You need to know that. Business, you need to know what your company does. The days of IT being separated from what the mission of the organization is gone. You've got to know what your business does. You are no longer keeping the train on the tracks. You're making sure it's the right train and that the customers on the train are happy. Everybody with me? Okay. Security is huge. You let one security breach happen and you can watch your donors evaporate like that. Maths. You need to know math. Sorry, there it is. Maybe you're fine with that. Maybe you're not. If you're not, get fine with it. If you're going to be in this career field, you need to go back to math. Go back to math camp. Options. You have on-premises, and it's premises, not premise. Premise is a thought. Premises is a building. So when a computer is on-premise, I'm like, you're thinking about data? It's on-premises. Anyway, I'm not a grammar nerd all the time. I am from the South, but that just bogs me. All right, and then the cloud. And again, we'll just leave the marketing term. The point is, there may be something out there that can do the work for you. Leverage that where it makes sense. And it doesn't matter whose you leverage. It's not an all or nothing world these days. Training. You need to understand your business and trade. When you go to your classes, don't just educate yourself on technology. Go take a business class. If you can wear a tie or a nice business suit or a nice dress, then make sure you can do that with the business people and that you can talk with the geeks and put on your propeller hat and wear your tinfoil armband. All right? You need to understand data types. Really? Yeah, it matters. It matters a lot. The first time I saw a query that was performing super badly, I went and looked, and it turns out even though when you selected it, they were both numbers on the screen, I'm like, what's going on? One was a numeric and one was text. When it was joining, it was doing on per row, over 1 million rows, it was doing an implicit conversion. Merely changed the data type, brought the data back in, and it went from like 7 hours on the query to like 7 seconds. And I was a hero, and they gave me money. They'll give you money. All right. Data design. Understand the different data designs. There are different data designs in structured data than there is in semi-structured data. I'll leave that for you to go research more. And then process flow. The goes intos and goes out ofs. Make sure you know what those are in your company and your organization. How they move from one place to another. Means you'll have to get up and ask somebody's name. Who handles this? Go meet that person. Buy them a coffee. Buy them a donut. You can accomplish amazing things with pizza. Right? I feed developers all the time. They'll tell you deep, dark secrets about their company if you'll give them pizza. At lunch. Right? At lunch. All right. Any questions on data sources? Okay, moving to storing and processing. This talks about defining how to ingress, store, process, and the outflow technologies associated with data. And here we're really talking about structured versus unstructured, and we just discussed that for a moment, but we're also talking about two very important words. It's not really a cloud, it's actually distributed computing. Distributed computing. What does that mean? Doing all or some of your computing somewhere else. That's all it means. No more complicated than that, right? If I asked you to do 5 things, and we all waited for you to get done, I'm picking on you because you were dumb enough to sit in the front row. If I asked you to do 5 things, we have to wait on you. But if I asked you to do 1, 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 and you can manage them. So you'll do nothing and take credit. So then that all happens and comes back at the same time. This is in parallel. Parallelize the things you can't. Find out where you cannot parallelize things. Hadoop is not new. This whole idea of breaking apart and putting compute over data has been around since the mainframe. It's what we had to do because we had constrained resources. In fact, most of the patterns of the mainframe are coming back. Server-side processing, small connections, retry logic, and distributed functions. These are all things we knew back in the 80s. And we need to get that back into the new paradigms with the new power that we have. RDBMS, NoSQL, and then CEP stands for Complex Event Processing. There's a certain kind of processing you can do as the stream goes by. You don't actually have to store it or go query it. You query it as it goes by, right? So if I'm looking for values higher than 42, as the stream comes by, I just interrogate it, and if you're not a 42 or higher, you get to go on, that kind of thing. There are tons and tons of complex event processing engines. Questions here? And then finally, where do you learn this? Well, graduate and applied research and then trade. That's really where you're going to get into data structures. It's going to be, and data computation and data and distributed stuff. This is not something you sort of learn on the job. You can self-educate, but at some point you're going to need to get people smarter than you to help you understand how that works. We all have to do it. I learn something new every day. Everybody teaches me something. And everybody makes me happy. Some people make me happy when I see them, and other people make me happy when I see them leave. Let's talk about analysis next. So that's the next stage. Data sources, storage and processing, analysis. This is a little different. We used to jump straight to looking at it, but we're doing a separate step here. This is understanding how to evaluate the sources, transformations of data, and extrapolating and interpreting meaning from data. This is new. It's a dangerous world for us techies to be in, and we've got to get there because the business side has neither the time nor the acumen to accurately quantify the data they need to look at. They have a second level ignorance. So the first level ignorance means I don't know, but I know it's there. I'm unaware of how to work on this, but I know it exists. Second level ignorance is I don't even know that that thing exists and that I should be worried about it. Right? We call that in Florida the gator that you see and the alligator that you don't see. Right? So the alligator I don't see is the one I'm more worried about. Okay? Here you need to know stats. And you need to know data analytics. If you need a great tutorial on data analytics, go look up on Wikipedia the topic, data analytics. The group that put that particular topic together did a great job. It's a syllabus. You could teach a class off that. So go look that up. Every time you run across a word you don't know, you write it down and go figure out what it means and see if you need to care about it or not. Data analysis, great topic. And then R, Excel, and Python. Okay, get over it. Excel is the business person's tool. They understand it. You can force them. I got told the other day by a large place that manufactures coffee in the Pacific Northwest by a chief executive officer that said, if anybody else comes in here and shows me another data exploration tool, I will kick them in the baby maker. He was tired of it. He's like, I don't want to be an expert in data anymore. That's not, everybody keeps showing up with these awesome tools. I don't want any more tools. I want an answer. I've got a bunch of stuff over here. I need to know what to do with it. That's what data is for me. They live in Excel. Learn it, use it, know it. It's okay. It's gotten better. It does a lot of stuff. Figure out what it can do and what it can't do. R, if you're not familiar with the R language, the open source version of SAS, so it's SPSS, excuse me, that has the statistical language in it. It's based off the language S. RS. So it's based off that language. It's very powerful. You can read a data set in from the web, visualize it, and spit it back out in 2 lines of code. It has a place. Go find out what that place is. I recommend, by the way, if you're new, using R Studio, open source, and so is R. RStudio is a great IDE, integrated development environment, that will help you learn R and put some things sort of in your face so you can go get the right packages and so on. And then Python. God help us all, Python. It's a scripting language, but it has become the data science tool in general. How many of you in here using Python already, kind of Python familiar? There's very little you can't do in Python, especially when it comes to data. There's just very little you can't do in Python. There are add-in libraries to Python, StatPy, SciPy, NumPy, and so on are some of the main packages that you'll see data scientists using. Again, there'll be some information in here about that. R, Excel, Python. On analysis, anybody have anything else you'd recommend that you think is ubiquitous? I know that there's Tableau and there's reporting services and there's analytics from Oracle and all. Anybody have any tools that you would say, man, you just, for analysis, you can't get better than this? Yes, sir.
A lot of people use Waka.
Waka.
Waka for machine learning.
Oh, yes. So machine learning, definitely. We'll come to that in a moment. We'll come to, you had one as well.
GODA.
GODA. What is that?
It's kind of like R in that it's statistics.
Okay.
And it'll test for autocorrelation, it'll test for
Oh, interesting.
statistical geographic.
Okay. I've learned something new today. Let me write that down. GODA. That one I have not heard of. Great, thank you. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Well, I would just say with regards to Excel.
Yes, sir.
I think you can be more specific and say pivot tables and pivot charts.
Agreed.
Like that's
Yep.
90% of it.
Yeah, I would say that that's true. And I've heard it called the Walmart of analysis. It's good enough and it's cheap. So, and it is. And so pivot tables and pivot charts, and then Power Pivot we have now, which has some compression stuff in it. It's not sales. There's some compression stuff in there so you can bring millions of rows of data into memory now, where you couldn't even remotely store that kind of thing locally. So definitely check those out. Again, not a sales pitch. I'm telling you what I've seen, and to their chagrin and clenched teeth, my brethren on this side of the pond had to agree with me that are also on the data science board at Microsoft, who work at large companies that do search. They had to also agree, yep, it's Excel. The world runs on Excel. Well, I believe personally that when the universe ends, there'll be a small Excel spreadsheet that was running it all. And somebody typed in a really weird formula when I came up. So here's the way you can do this for training. Online, in-person, stat courses, data science book list. On this, you'll find a group called, and Goodreads. How many of you are familiar with Goodreads? Okay, there's lots of book things out there. Goodreads is pretty good. They've got a data science book area, and people are contributing to that. So there's a great set of books you can go learn there if you're a book type person. If you're more into the videos, there's a ton of them out there as well. Any questions on the analysis side? We covered a couple. Thank you for the mention on GODA there. I'll go take a look at that. All right, application. This is interesting and new for us. This is the area that's scary for a data professional. Work with the organization on how they'll consume and act on the data. Security and the disposition. What does disposition mean? It means getting rid of it. You got to figure out how to get rid of the data when you're done. Do you keep it forever? In the military, we had very strict disposition orders on the data that we kept. You should think about that from the outset. Otherwise, your database starts looking like a data trough or the kitchen sink, where you've got that, the drawer underneath, it's got everything in it, and those keys, you don't even know what those keys go to anymore. There's like a skeleton key in there. Who has skeleton keys, right? And that's in there. Just me? Am I the only one with that drawer? No, you've all got that drawer. You've got more than one of them? Okay, very nice. All right, here you need to know statistics, predictive analytics, regression testing, and visualization methodologies. Edward Tufte, who's written the same book 5 times and managed to sell it as a separate entity, has a good visual. I'm sorry, was that out loud? He hates Microsoft, and we love him to death. No, we don't. He's got a good book on visualization. The first book is great. The rest of them were derivatives of that same thing. Get that one. There's other good visualization classes. You need to know this as a data professional, because where are your business people going to start? Are they going to start with the data types? Are they going to start with the storage methodology and engine? They're going to say, I want it to look like this. So you need to know the visualizations to know how to work backwards. All right. You need to know how to code. You have to write something. I recommend Python. Oh, I can't believe I said that. But you need to learn to code something. Python's easy, and it's good enough. Use 3.0. Don't use the old version. 3.3. And then coordination techniques, how to manage data across places, because you're going to start getting into things like latencies in distributed computing, retry logic, and so on. These become super important for the data professional. You also need to learn data visualization and business interaction. You're only going to learn when you get out there and work with your data, with your business people. That's the way that's going to work. Skills you need, and I'm just going to bring these up real quick. First, linear algebra and stats. You need that, okay? Applied statistics is best. There are multiple, stats is its own world, and there's multiple kinds. Stay on applied, or sometimes you hear it called business statistics, things like that. Programming and scripting. You might also check out a new programming language from Microsoft Research called F#. It's a declarative language type programming, but it has object-oriented factored right in, and it's got a lot of numerics. There's a series in there for it called Cloud Numerics and a few others. Very powerful language. You can run it on Mono or other platforms, but it's primarily Microsoft-based. Distributed system. MapReduce is a good one to study. It's an archetype. It's not new. Everybody keeps reinventing things, God bless them, and we don't tell them that, you know, NoSQL is really just COBOL flat files redone, but they have to think they've invented something. Come on, give them something. All right, and then business and organization domain knowledge. The science is only 3/4 or 0.75 of what you need to understand and know. You need to know your tech. They're going to expect that, but you're going to have to reach across the aisle and figure out what they do for a living, because they're not going to reach across the aisle to figure out what you do for a living. It's just the way it works. It's incumbent upon the technical professionals to figure out what that means. You can find out more about me and the lies I tell about myself on buckwoody.com. You can find out what other people say. Let me say a couple of things on the professional development side. So we've been talking a lot of tech and some technologies that you should learn. Let me explain a couple of things about the resume that you'll see when you go out there. It's more of a CV, a curriculum vitae, than it is a resume. But I actually did business intelligence across my career, and you'll see the charts on my career right there at the top. You'll also see things like Peer Index and mywebcareer.com. These are things I don't have control over. These are programs that go out and scrub the web and look for what people said about you. And they give you a score that you don't control. And your boss can look at it, and anybody can look at it. And it's almost like a credit score. You need one. Having no credit score is actually worse than having a bad one. So if you're invisible, that tells us, if you're in technology and you're invisible, that's not good, right? You should have written a blog or something here or there, or a book or something, right? You should have attended a conference or some kind of interaction technologically, right? But it's about what other people say about you. That's kind of scary. So as you become someone who enables data, how to take your career to the next level, that was the catch line to this particular session. I'm assuming you're here for that reason. You're going to have to go all the way back to what we talked about when we first walked in. Is $50 good? And you're going to have to say, yeah, that's pretty good. Or, nope, and here's what you can do about that. Here are some possible ideas I have. Because at the end of the day, what we all do, whether you're a cook or a CEO or a data professional like us, at the end of the day, we solve problems for a living. When I walk into the restaurant, I'm hungry. I have a problem. I have two problems. I'm hungry and I have money. And the cook makes sure both of those problems get solved. I get a hamburger, I'm no longer hungry, and he relieves me of my money, right? The CEO, everybody wants his stock to make money. And he solves a problem. He makes money. Stock's not making money, he makes money. What do? Somebody needs to run that data system, and so you're doing that. But if the hamburger guy only just gave you a hamburger and just handed it to you, walked over to the table and just handed you a hamburger, you'd be like, you don't have a plate? I don't get napkins here? Do you want to offer me something to drink? Are you doing that? Are you adding? Are you giving them? Are you solving the real problems? Do you even know which problems you need to go after? This is part of the data you need to do across yourself, across your day-to-day job. And it's not easy. It's inertia. We're busy. Nobody here's got extra time. We've all got things we need to do, so you need to take a look at the time you do have and filter that down. Questions? Comments? Yes, sir.
Just one comment. You know, you talked about it through the
Yes, sir?
Sort of the enabling technology of self-reflection and networking.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those are the things that seem to drive how quickly you're going to learn things, who's going to be in your resource pool, and how much are you going to push yourself to keep on top of those technologies.
Yeah, it's a great point. The know thyself, which actually isn't a Greek saying. It's actually a saying from Shakespeare, who said it to Hamlet, who said it to Laertes, who said it to the king, all of whom were self-deceptive, which I thought was kind of ironic. And you didn't have anything to do with that. I just thought I'd bring it up. At any rate, know thyself. I find it amazing, as I said at the very beginning, that people who analyze data for a living don't analyze the data on their own selves. It's amazing. And you'll be happier. Sometimes we're afraid to look at what we're doing because we're afraid we might have to change something. Get over it. We're all about change, right? Questions? Thank you for that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so how do we grow data science teams in non-profit world because the salaries are so low that let's say Microsoft and Netflix?
Yeah, you know what, a corollary question I get asked all the time. So the question was, how do I grow a data science team? You guys have money, you've got, and by the way, we don't, but you got money and all this, so you've got resources. How do I do it? I get asked a corollary question. So we talked about corollaries, one thing that depends upon another. My students that I graduate from my database class go, nobody will hire me because I don't have any experience. Have you gone to your database, how many of you have gone to your database classes in your colleges and said, for your class project, have them solve this project? How many of you have done that? Raise your hand. You're not alone. Almost nobody has. Do that. Go to your classes. If you don't have any classes that are teaching data technologies, go to the college next door. You can't swing a dead cat around here without hitting a college. Go to another college. Not that you'd swing a dead cat. Where does that come from? Who swings a dead cat? It's just odd. But you just go to one of the colleges and say, you got a course? So we have a group here in Seattle called NPower, which is a group that does charitable work, and they put technical professionals together with projects that haven't been solved in nonprofits. Find out if there's something like that there. We're out of time. I will make myself available in the hall if you'd like to chat further. Thanks for your time. The closing session today is going to have the LinkedIn guy in there. You should check it out. Thanks a bunch, guys.